We believe that anybody that's accepted to Aquinas should get a scholarship. So if you met our entry criteria, you're going to get a merit-based scholarship. We'll work with you. And, scholarships are money you don't have to pay back. Then we also try to see if there's any other scholarships that you're eligible for. So there could be federal money, there could be state money, there could be local money that they're giving out. So scholarships and grants you do not have to pay back.
Hey everyone, this is Will Geiger, and welcome back to another episode of Office Hours. I'm really excited about today's guest, Brian Matzke, who's the Vice President of Enrollment Management at Aquinas College in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Welcome, Brian.
Oh, well, thanks for having me here. Appreciate that.
Yeah, really excited to chat. And I guess just to start things off, I'd love to kick off with a question about misconceptions in the admissions, Brian. And I'm curious from your vantage point, what the biggest misconception that students have about higher ed today?
Well, thanks. Before we get into that, I'm just going to introduce myself, Brian Metke. I'm in my 29th year of administration here at Aquinas College. I started in enrollment and then took a detour for academic affairs and student affairs for about 10 years each, and then been back leading up the enrollment effort the last 4 years. So I think some of the misconceptions that we see in higher ed is really, I think people realize we're trying to work with families to try to help them eliminate barriers. So you're seeing things like direct admit, you're seeing things that are in the marketplace now. How can we legitimately help you? We know the college population is shrinking a little bit, and we want to help students get through the process so that we're really advocates for you. Sometimes people are like, oh, who's reading my essay and who's doing this? It's actually, we want to find the best class and accept good people. So I think when it comes to higher ed as a whole, I think there's a misconception, is it still worth it? That question's out there in the marketplace. And, you've seen studies really conservatively, $400,000 more in a lifetime. You see up to 2 million. I'd say about 1 million is what you see on average of a lifetime earners that go and get a college degree. So it's definitely still worth it from an economic perspective. Also from a social perspective, right? 18 years old, 17, 18-year-olds that are coming to college, how do you learn how to be adult? How do you learn how to, let's say, make friends, but be in community with people that may be like you and may not be like you? And it's kind of a safer ground to kind of try those things. I think about students that, from 17 or 18 jump right into the workforce, are trying to find their first apartment. We've already done that through living through a residence hall or, living in community with others. I think it just breaks down some of those barriers. And then, the satisfaction with college. You'll hear some politicians and things say, well, it's not worth it. And then look where their kids are going to college. We just saw from Arts and Science magazine that 85% of parents from last year's class are happy that their student went to college. So it's still showing both short-term and long-term gains, right, for the people.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of interesting information to unpack there. And I love, just to your first point, Brian, just bringing up that admissions and financial aid counselors are, folks who can help. They're not just like these, you know, decision makers that are, thumbs up, thumbs down on applicants. I think in a lot of ways are partners for families who are navigating a really big and pivotal life decision that can also just be a pretty complicated financial one as well. And I think that's a really wonderful thing to remind folks of. And that's always one of my go-to pieces of advice for students and families is if you have a question, you're applying to school, like pick up the phone and call you have an expert at your fingertips. These schools, they wanna help make the process as smooth as possible.
Yeah, and some families that they may only have one, or it might be their oldest going to college, or they didn't get a chance to go to college. Their parents, we love working with, first generation or oldest because we work with hundreds and thousands of students, right? And so we've been through this. I always love when I get asked a question I've never been asked for, and I'll stop like that is awesome. That is a question again. 29 years in higher ed, I have not been asked that question. That's a great question, right? On most questions we have been asked for before, and again, this is our profession. This is what we do on a daily basis. So don't be shy about asking those questions. We're here to help.
Yeah, thinking about that, is there a question that you wish a student or a family member asked more frequently? I'm just curious for the listeners out there.
I don't know if there's a specific question. Like I said, we've heard a lot of them. I just make sure that they get their questions answered because that's what we're here to do. We're trying to authentically guide them to the best place. So if there are, can I afford this, or what does this financial aid package mean, or I don't quite understand this, let us know your objections. What is there? Because we want to help you. We want to help you through the process. I think a good question to ask some schools is, this is an investment, of time and energy. And if somebody leaves the college, why do they leave? We're really happy at Aquinas with our persistence rate of 87% of our students, come back. We spent a lot of time looking at that 13% that didn't. What happened? For us, it's like mental health. We are also
Mhm.
small school, so there's some students that will want to go into something like architectural design or engineering, which are programs that we don't have. Starting sales pitch with departments we don't have, right? But that's the right reason to transfer out, right? We will help them find a program that matches with them. What's your retention rate or persistence rate? And then why are the people not coming back? If they don't know, that's probably not a good sign, because we care deeply about each individual and why they left. And so we're trying to do some programs. We'll talk a little bit, about the block program probably coming up too. Looking at what the market is and mental health being an issue and how can we help students overcome some of those things that have come up since the pandemic.
Yeah, I think that's a really great segue. I'd love to hear for a lot of folks out there may not know what the block plan is, or maybe they've heard about it generally. But I'm curious from your perspective, Brian, what it is about the block plan? I think it's really cool and innovative. Can you share a little bit more about it, and why students might find that to be a particularly rewarding opportunity at Aquinas?
Well, I think we got to look at Aquinas College has always been kind of out in front with modalities. We were one of the first to have evening schools. When people come back from World War II, we wanted our soldiers and veterans to be able to come back and get night degrees. They were working during the days, come back at night. So, we've always had those modalities. So, coming out of the pandemic, we were looking at mental health with students. And so, for people that have gone to college and maybe familiar, most of the time we're a 4 credit base. So, 4 classes kind of throughout. You might have a class Monday at, 9:30. It runs Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And you might have a class then again at 1:30 on Mondays, another class at 4. And maybe on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you have a class from, 1:30 to 2:45. What the block does is really consolidate. So you only take one class at a time. So instead of taking 4 classes kind of simultaneously, you take one class at a time for 18 days in a dedicated period. So this is for a first year experience that we do to kind of transition people to college. Because again, we were talking about, I want to answer the why before I get into the modality itself. Two reasons. Number one, when we were looking at students that weren't coming back, that were academically dismissed, and we don't have many, but we were looking at their ACTs were up 26, 27, so these weren't students that couldn't do it. It was time management. So we really think this helps with time management. It also allows you to do a deep dive into these programs. So for 18 days, you can be a scientist. And then for 18 days, you can be a theologian. And for 18 days, you can study psychology, right? So you take one class at a time from 9 to noon for 18 straight days. And so you're only studying one subject. You know what your class is. So this is great for afternoons. If you're a student athlete, you want to have practice in the afternoon. If you want to get a job in the afternoon, you do have to study. There is some homework that's assigned. So, 9 to noon isn't only academic time, but you can do your homework. Remember also the professors that are teaching this are only teaching that one class at a time. So they have their afternoons free. So if you struggled with a concept, you can really meet with that professor in the afternoon. It also allows us to do some experiential learning because we do know that that is the only class. So sometimes, if you want to go to the art museum or something like that, we might extend it for an hour and say, hey, now we have time. You're not rushing to go back and forth from campus. We're only, 2 minutes from downtown Grand Rapids, which is a great location for us. But you can do those things and really do a deep dive for those 18 days. And then at the end of 18 days, you actually get a 3-day weekend. So it ends on a Wednesday. So you get Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So for some of our out-of-state students that maybe want to go back home once a month, it kind of goes right into that kind of routine, right, to kind of get you used to that. So you do a deep dive into that subject matter for 18 days. You're also not going to have, a full week of final exams. You're not going to have that, that hell week, as sometimes it's called around
Mhm.
campus, at the end of the semester, because you're going to have one final project or one final exam before you go on that break. So lots of opportunities to do deep dive, to do work with one instructor. The instructors love it. They know the student's name by the second day. What I would love, I have not had the privilege of teaching in this, but as a person that taught a lot of first year courses in my past, you might have a really good discussion. Then it's 11:50 and the class is over, and then the student has gone to logic, later that afternoon, and calculus that night, and then the next day they've taken a philosophy course, and you're picking back up in your discipline. I taught communications. It's hard to pick right back where you left off. When the block, I mean, literally they haven't had anything else, so you can really pick up that next day. That's one of the things we're hearing from our professors is they can just pick up right where they left off. Um, without much of a gap because that was the last thing they were talking about. And then we do have dedicated classrooms for these. So a lot of those classrooms is kind of fun. And I would encourage anybody to take a tour of any campus that they're checking out, as a detail. But they'll have a coffee machine. The professors really make it their own because that is theirs for their whole
Mm.
block. They're not moving in and out. So you'll see some of the professors' personalities. You'll see a little dog cage in one of those. You'll see those bean bags. Another one. You'll see a coffee maker. We have one professor that really loves coffee, and the students love to come in and make coffee with them in the morning. So they really make that their own, and they form one of the things that came out of it is the community that's formed. This is a opt-in modality, so it's not for everybody. We do limit it at 84 students, but those students really know each other very, very well. And they kind of formed their own community within the group because they are, there's about 8 classes, so only I would say downside of the block is you don't get the full course catalog, right? It's going to be a little bit narrow. However, you're going to see those people for 18 days, and then you may see them another block, 2 blocks down. So they really do form quite a community. And of course, they all get out at the same time. So, at noon, they all kind of run to the lunch together. So it's kind of cool to see.
Yeah, no, I think it's such an interesting model just to go a little bit deeper and to be a little bit more focused. And it just, sort of strikes me in a time when I think there's just in life so much task switching between devices, notifications, and so much noise. Like it's an opportunity to center and to be really focused on really going deep into a particular discipline, which I think is so cool.
Yeah, for 18 days, you get to be that discipline. You can be a sociologist, you can be an archaeologist, whatever class you're taking, you're gonna do a deep dive for those 18 days.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I absolutely love that, and it's just, I don't know, I think for the students out there, it's just a really I think Aquinas is such a great example of a school that is doing something a little bit differently on the academic front and something to be looking out for.
I give our faculty all the credit, being innovative. I think that's one of the things you want to look at is, what works with the traditional academic model and what can you improve on and what can be innovative. And I just give our faculty the credit for doing this.
Yeah, and I'm sure for faculty, it's a little bit different, different, not teaching a number of courses, but just definitely, it seems like that would be a popular thing to be doing, just to focused on one subject, one cohort of students, and just getting to build those relationships in a really intentional way must be really special for the faculty at Aquinas who are involved with this. Switch gears a little bit, Brian. I also was really curious. I know that Aquinas is a Dominican Catholic institution, and I'm just curious how you might describe that the Dominican tradition on campus.
Yeah, it's a very inclusive. So the fourth, you can kind of see it behind me. I'm going to try to point to it. Our
Yeah,
mission
yeah.
statement's right behind me. But the fourth word, first adjective, Aquinas College and inclusive. So we're inclusive of everybody, right? The Dominican pillars are prayer, study, community, and service. So we really center ourselves around those 4 things. Prayer, having that time of reflective time to realize that there's more than myself out there in the world. Study, obviously, as an academic institution, we're going to ground ourselves in our academic disciplines. Community is probably the overarching pillar. Our students would tell you that this is just a fantastic place to be. Like we talked a little bit about the block, but just so many things to do. But it's just a very tight knit community. We have a saying here, you can disagree without being disagreeable. And I,
Mm,
I feel
I
like
love that.
my job in admissions overall, I joke with my staff is it's no jerks, right? How do you make sure that no jerks come to campus? And you can have disagreements, but we call this things, disputatio, how you can disagree without being disagreeable as you search for the truth. And then service, we're very oriented on service. We do it, what we do, our outcomes, our students. We have a lot of people that go into service industries, sociology, medical fields to help other people, psychology. We really focus on service to others. And I think that, the Dominican tradition has been around for over 800 years. Aquinas College, we're celebrating year 140. So, these pillars are there and they've lasted over time. And I'd like to think of us as the and campus. It's a small college and we have big opportunities.
Hmm.
We have an 800-year Dominican tradition and a future-ready mindset. Looking for faith and reason. The Catholic mission with genuine hospitality to all faiths and people that don't have faith, right? So really that community spirit of how do we engage with each other? How do we treat each other with genuine respect and love? I think it's something that's really cool and unique to Aquinas. That's what we find when people come to campus and our students, they just say this sense of community really is strong there. So we're trying to build, a small campus with a lot of connections in the community.
Yeah, no, I love the going through those different pillars, and it's really just interesting to think about the, Did you say it was 800 years old, the Dominican tradition?
Yeah, they started in southern France. I had a chance to take some students there on a mission trip years ago. But yeah, about 800 years ago, Saint Dominic started in
Okay, yeah.
Dominican out of from Saint Dominic, right? Yep.
Okay. And yeah, just that, yeah, that 800, 140, and just like today. And I'm a big fan of history. And I love that there's centuries and centuries to the mission. It's like a good reminder for students that, obviously Aquinas welcomes students of all faiths. And I, also love, especially going through the pillars of community and service, just how those are aspects of that tradition that are really prominent on campus, which is wonderful. You kind of answered my next question, but I was also just I'm always curious how for a school that has a faith-based tradition, how that might shape the campus culture and academics. That's, yeah, always really interesting to see.
Yeah, I think it shapes academics in that, like I said, a lot of our students go into service related. Like we just had one of our uh, graduates just got named to be a top 100 scholar in the medical field. He's doing a lot of research on trying to keep people away from suicidal ideology. What triggers that, and is kind of groundbreaking research. I think the community pillar, of small class sizes, so really getting to know your professors, really getting to know each other in the class, and have those spirited dialogues where people might disagree or come from different aspects as we pursue the truth, right? So I think that small class size, that small feeling, treating everybody with respect and dignity. We're also a very sustainable campus. We've been top 4 or 5 in small colleges for measurables for sustainability for a long time. It's a beautiful forested campus. That love of nature that comes from the Catholic tradition and the sustainability as well. So I think that's how you'll see it throughout campuses. That small class sizes, that real sense of community, and then the care for nature and God's planet, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I am curious to, related to that, you could also describe the relationship between Aquinas and Grand Rapids and what that's like, and just the opportunities that offers to students.
Yeah, it's really hard to describe. We need people to come visit campus and see how we're tucked away. So we're a forested environment. We have about 100. We call it the 100-acre woods. So a little bit of Winnie the Pooh reference there. Beautiful campus, beautiful all 4 seasons. We've been called the prettiest campus in this whole state of Michigan by the Travel Magazine, or the second most prettiest, with the top location by Niche Magazine. So we're located. I can't see it, but right downtown, about 2.5 minute drive to downtown Grand Rapids. So Grand Rapids has a lot of great opportunities. For those not familiar with Grand Rapids, Michigan, it's halfway between Detroit and Chicago. So the second biggest city in Michigan. We're on the west side of the state of Michigan. We have beautiful beaches not far from campus. We really work well with the city. We're trying to be an incubator of thought. They come to us. We have a very good reputation within the city. Aquinas grads, I always love when people come to campus and they'll go downtown to eat first. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, we mentioned Aquinas." We had 3 people say, "Oh, it's a great place." So a very good reputation. But we're a little bit of a reprieve from the city. When you're on campus, you don't realize that the city is only a 2-minute drive there. We'll have people take scooters into downtown Grand Rapids. So it's really kind of this just oppose. You have this quiet park lake. We have a lot of community members walk their dogs through campus every day. We've been called the best kept secret in Grand Rapids. So many people said, "Oh, I've driven by campus. I didn't realize it was back there." And in a way, it's good. In a way, it's bad. We don't get a
Yeah.
lot of people on campus as far as just passing through or cutting through the roads. However, it is a very beautiful park like campus, and a lot of the schools will bring their children in for elementary and middle school in the fall because we have a very diverse amount of trees. So one of the things that I could say 29 years ago was shows my age, is that we used to say we have one of each type of tree that can be found in the state of Michigan on our campus. Well, then the internet got invented and they did some research, and there's some trees in the UP that we don't have. And being a sustainable campus, they probably wouldn't grow here, is what our faculty have kind of found. So we don't want to plant a tree just to have it die. But I will say there's 139 different species of trees. It's going to be the most diverse campus that you're going to see. So we get all these students out there with their leaf collections. We have talks about the community too, like our campus safety officers. What do? They actually give leaf tours. That's where they spend a lot of their time in the fall, is getting on the golf carts and taking people through and teaching them the bubblegum tree, and the difference between oaks and maples for some of the younger kids, and then the different species of oaks and maples that we have on campus for some of the more middle school kids. So it's a pretty cool environment that we have here, and one of the things that really attracted me to Aquinas when I was looking for opportunities.
Yeah, no, appreciate that overview and definitely encourage folks to visit campus, check out, an online like virtual tour and, get all of the beautiful visuals. I know the art museum in Grand Rapids is also quite famous. I was just reading about the architect who did it in a magazine the other day. I'm trying to remember what it was called exactly.
The Graham. Yep.
Exactly. Yes, yes,
Yep.
yes, yes. And I was like, wow, that is very, very, very cool.
Great people that run the Graham. As a matter of fact, there's something in Grand Rapids called Art Prize, and it's the single biggest prize. They give a cash award for those that enter it. It's $250,000, and one of our professors here, that's actually a graduate of Aquinas College, has won it. So, little Aquinas College, we've been around, and we've had three winners of Art Prize, including one of our professors. So, kind of cool that we've had that.
Yeah, no, that is very cool. I'm curious, Brian, also what as vice president of enrollment management and missions, what do you wish that more students knew off the bat about Aquinas?
Yeah, I think we had some of that, being a small Catholic school in a great opportunity city, that we're kind of the and college, that we look at things for faith and reason. When we were doing some advancement, our two new buildings on campus, chapel and science. In a day of polarization, it's
Mm,
this or that. We did a faith and reason campaign, and our donors, provided us with both a chapel, a beautiful chapel in the middle of campus that you can see the four seasons, just beautiful sight lines, and then our science center at the same time, right? Because we see them as going together. It's a sense of community. I know a lot of small schools are going to say they have community. It's just a very special sense of community that we have here on campus. Very happy alumni base, faculty that do make a difference. I think we're a small school, but being in that and being in, try to not say but anymore, right? The and campus and being in the city of Grand Rapids, we can attract some talent that, maybe some of the more rural areas, they don't maybe have those outcomes, job placement rates that we've been able to do, and we got a very good reputation. So I think we're just very genuine and very caring and very service oriented.
yeah, I mean, definitely what you're saying. It seems like just a place where that is a sort of self-selective type of student who wants to be collaborative. They're curious, but it's not like a ultra competitive place where students are competing against one another. That they're more likely to be working with each other. And just loved how you described how students they may disagree, but trying to do that in a respectful way, which I think we could definitely use a lot more of in the world.
Yeah, yeah, we want people to find the truth and their own truths, right? So, yeah, yeah, collaboration. I'm a competitive spirit by nature too. You'll see a little bit of that, but I really look. You look at a lot of our space in the lounge. It's a lot of collaborative workspace. Labs work together. So I really do feel like we're very collaborative here.
Yeah. In the early part of the conversation, I appreciate you calling out experiential learning, which I think is just something for so many students and families to, be thinking about as you are making decisions about college and doing college research. And it made me think a little bit about what are some of the things that families can be asking um, about outcomes, about careers that go beyond just a single job placement rate.
Yeah, I think getting back to experiential learning, asking people to define what that is. So for us, we talked about that, some of those block school classes going, if you're doing the history of religion, being able to go into the different spaces. You can look at something on a PowerPoint or seeing the pictures, but when you go into that space and have the rabbi or the pastor, really talk to you and show you the space and show you the spiritual space. We had our business class. They've raised over $100,000 for a ministry here, Mel Trotter Ministries on campus. And that started with a blank piece of paper and the professor saying, "How are we going to help this organization? What are we going to do in a 100 level class?" Right. So we have multiple ways of doing that. I think the other outcomes is not just looking at job placement rates, but like, what are they doing? What jobs are they doing? We're very happy that the average starting salary is about a little bit over $51,000 now. And we produce good people, and I should say, good people come to us, and we help polish them. One of the things that made me most proud as an alum is I live out in the suburbs, so not right in downtown Grand Rapids, but not far. I'm in a suburb, and I coached my daughter's softball team. And there's other schools around here. We're not the biggest player in the city, and there was six coaches total. So we had a league of six, and five of us were Aquinas alums that were there. So just kind of that whole spirit of holistic development. And why were we coaching? We got talking. I didn't know a couple of them were alums until they identified me as Aquinas. Oh yeah, I went there, and I did know one of the other gentlemen as well. But it's just that well-rounded life. Playing with our daughters, helping to develop skill sets. We're teaching young kids, so I'm not a baseball hitting coach or softball hitting coach, but we can teach the fundamentals of the game. We teach how to have fun. Each person can improve a little bit, right? Build the self-confidence. And I was just really proud of that. Like this is what we do. We develop good people that go out, give good civic lives, and see that there is a balance in the world, right? Yes, we'll have some people that go out and do very well in the business field, the medical field. I think we just also develop a lot of great people that keep the community moving.
Well, that's a real, yeah, testament to the Aquinas, I think. I mean, yeah, seems like statistically unlikely that that would be even in Grand Rapids, just like, Michigan's there's a lot of there's a lot of like large public schools that have like huge numbers of alums and other, just it's a state with many colleges that seems like statistically improbable, but says a lot about Aquinas overrepresented among the softball league, which is very, very cool. I'm just getting involved with your community and just, to your point, just trying to teach the fundamentals as well as having fun, being a good sport, and learning to be a good competitor as well.
Heck, we were founded as a teaching school too. We go back 140 years.
Hmm.
We were developing people to be teachers. So I think that's always been part of our DNA. I mean, we still have a very, very strong education program. I also think that, people that come to Aquinas to teach, we love the research they do. We love when they write books. However, they're really here to really teach and develop those students. And I think that just becomes part of our DNA. And then we want to kind of go out there and teach. If I can teach a little bit about softballs, about the rules, about how we can have some fun, we can do that, right? So I just think it's in our DNA.
Yeah, and I think that's also a good reminder for folks that some colleges are going to be a little bit more focused on research and on graduate programs. Some are going to be more focused on undergraduates and teaching. That's there's a variety of different models, and I think it depends on the what a student is looking for. But I think that for many students would benefit from a place that has that strong focus on undergraduate teaching and mentorship.
Yeah. Well, that mentorship, it reminds me of a student, Ajabel. She came over, she was an international student. She had a chance to have a Olympic internship, and only in a small place like Aquinas, where her faculty member, who is also her advisor, was able to move some of her classes online so she could be away for 17 days and not fall behind and still do check-ins and still have a wonderful, Olympic experience. So that's kind of cool.
Oh, cool. So was this the most recent and
Summer Olympics. It wasn't
Oh, cool.
this one.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh, oh, I love that story. Yeah, definitely, and, you're gonna be at a school like that, you're gonna be the focus just because that's why, faculty are there. It's very, very much a focus on undergraduate teaching and development. I'm curious for students who are getting, fast forward a few months, gonna be getting started on a college campus, how you think students can get on a strong career pathway, starting from freshman year.
Yeah. I just want to be honest. A third of our students come in undecided, and of those two-thirds that are decided, half of them become undecided at some point in
Yeah.
time. So to the students that are out there fretting, like, I don't know exactly what I do. We do have some students that say, I'm going to come in, I'm going to be a doctor, and they come in pre-med and they go through and they become doctors, right? Brian was one of those. But we also got to realize that sometimes, when it's funny when you look at people's goals and dreams, it's always, doctor, lawyer. They know a few professions that they've seen, but there's so many jobs out there that they may not even know that are out there. So meeting with our Advantage Center, that's what we have career services is embedded in our Aquinas Advantage Center. So it's doing some aptitude testing, strengths quest. What are your strengths? I really don't like students to stress too much in year 1, year 2. Usually, as long as you know what you're going to do by year 3, you can graduate in 4 years. So, those first couple of years, I actually want students to explore a little bit. Obviously, they can make appointments with the Advantage Center if they want to start doing internships their sophomore years to kind of get a feel for things. But really, I say, take a class. If you like it, take the next level of that
Mhm.
class, right? So if you took a communication class and really liked it, take public speaking, your intercultural communication, see what it's like, right? Because really, when you look at academics will know this, but when you look at do a pie chart, right? To graduate from Aquinas or most schools, it's usually right around 120 credit hours. That's what we are. And you divide that up, about 40 of those credit hours are going to be general education or required classes. These are us making sure that you have the skill set, no matter what you go into an industry, that you can communicate clearly, problem solve, have technical skills, right? So that's 40%, or 40 hours. Another 40 hours are going to be within your major, right? You're going to do a deep dive. And then the other 40 hours are going to be electives. Sometimes those will be another minor, sometimes you'll pick up another major, but this is really your chance to experiment, see different things. So if you came in and say, okay, I don't know, I didn't have sociology classes in my high school, let's try a sociology class. And it didn't work out, or you took two and say, ah, this is, well, is it for me? That's okay. They still count as your electives, right? So I think just keeping that mindset, kind of taking the pressure off. I think so much in my 30 years, I think that's one of the things that has really changed is, 30 years ago, I think people came into college like it's time to kind of experiment and try different things. And now I think it was so outcome driven that it's like, well, I want to come in, I want to be this, and I need to do this in 4 years. I need to get out of here. Yes, we want to do that. However, we just want to make sure that that you've explored all your opportunities because maybe you don't want to go back to college as a 25 or 26-year-old when you found your passion. Say, no, now I need the degree to do this. So to give yourself a little bit of time, a little bit of break, work with your faculty advisor. Like I said, faculty are the ones doing the advising, which is great because we do have students that go on to grad school, and they're the ones that are writing their grad
Mm.
school applications. I've done many of them. Those letters of reference, and it's kind of cool because you know the student, you know them inside out, upside down, right? You can really write an authentic letter. It's not an AI letter. It's not a generic. They'll do fine at your school. It really you know those students by the time they graduate. So get involved with our Aquinas Advantage Center. You can get involved in that, early on. Meet with your faculty advisor, and then take classes that are interesting to you. What perks your interest, and don't be afraid to try something new. If I haven't ever heard of this discipline before, maybe I take a class in it and see what it's all about. Because maybe uh, it will relate to me. I like to focus on strengths, and your talents early on, and then work it towards your career versus coming in and say, I absolutely have to be a anesthesiologist. Okay, if that is what you want to do, we'll work you through there. However, how did you, think about that? Well, I had a surgery as a kid and just remember that. Oh, that's cool. Or I don't know, I just heard it and I looked it up and it looks like they make good money. Okay. Or, I want to help others. There's so many ways of helping others. Is it only through the medical field? Sure, but have you thought about some of these other fields where you are service oriented and would be helping others?
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of really great advice there, Brian. And I think for a lot of students, it's you want to be mindful of the future, but also take the time to explore and not sort of pigeonhole yourself from day one, just because I'm sure there's plenty of folks who, they go through college, they're so focused on a particular pathway, don't really question that. And then when they start their job, they're like, wait, like this is not what I want to be doing. And I think that's a real shame just because college is this, really wonderful place to explore new opportunities. And, you can, try some just kind of using the example with the block plan, you can try something on for size. If like one semester you want to do a, part-time job in one area, you can try that, or an internship where it's like short term and, just like testing, experimenting and, reflecting on what you've liked, what you haven't liked. I think that there's a real beauty to that versus just feeling like you need to have every single thing figured out just because, to your point, the stats don't lie and most students are, coming undecided or changing their mind.
Yeah, I mean, we're proud of our outcomes, and college should be enjoyable, right? And there's that. I think that's another thing about us is, you can get involved right away. We've had sophomores have um, be editors of the paper. At some schools you got to go 4 years to get a byline, and then only a senior is ever going to be an editor, right? We have those opportunities as a smaller class because you can get involved more. You can start writing right away. You can show up those talents that you have, and that's what we're really in the business of is talent development, right? And, helping you become the best version of you as possible.
No, absolutely. I think it's great to be in a place where you have those mentorship opportunities. There's, not like massive barriers for getting involved. And, also love you pointing out that, for the purposes of like recommendations, they're gonna be written by people who know you really well, have worked with you, have your, have stories to share. And that does matter a lot and that does stand out versus just like being another, name and number.
Yeah, it's hard to get lost here, right? Student to faculty ratio is 11 to 1, average class size right around 15. So, you're gonna if you want to go to a place where you don't have to go to class, this isn't gonna be the place for you, right? And we have no teaching assistant, it's no graduate assistant, so it is the professor that's gonna be teaching you. That's you're paying your tuition to be taught by a full professor, and that's who's gonna be teaching you. We have just a great academic readiness.
Yeah, yeah, no, and that makes a big difference, and I think being part of a small community is really wonderful for that reason, and just you'll see it's I'm sure the type of place if you're that don't show up here for class, you may bump into that professor in the library or dining hall or somewhere else on campus, so you have that to contend with.
Yep, we have a person, you miss 2 days of class, he's probably gonna be at your door, right? Her name's Sarah, and, in addition to your faculty, right? Yeah, very few people fall through the cracks here. I would say that, again, this is why it's so important to do the research of the students that don't succeed or don't make it, why is it? And like I said, we find it's mental health or leaving for a program that we don't have are 2 major reasons, for that. And then finances, we try to work with students on finances. We know that, college is expensive.
Yeah.
We do the best we can, which is why we partner with great people like Will and Scholarship 360, and we're very proud of the financial aid that we get. We got some great donors that help us out. So we always say, don't cross any school off, not just Aquinas, any school off when you look at that price tag, because there are a lot of scholarships out there, especially for the schools that may have a little bit of a higher price tag that we provide to try to make it affordable to everybody. Matter of fact, we
Yeah.
have the Aquinas Assurance, so if you come in and you're full Pell in the state of Michigan, we make it so that you can come here without paying out of pocket. So
Yeah, I wanted to yeah, that's a great segue, Brian. Obviously for a lot of our listeners and students and parents, cost and affordability are important part of their process. And would, yeah, I love if you'd be able to just kind of walk through what the for an incoming first year freshman, what the financial aid opportunities look like at Aquinas. So yeah, that program for Pell eligible Michigan students, I think is, yeah, in particular a great one.
and we want to be open for students outside the state too. So we have a great financial aid model. Yeah, so we believe that anybody that's accepted to Aquinas should get a scholarship. So if you met our entry criteria, you're going to get a merit-based scholarship. It's going to depend if you live on campus or off campus. I don't want to get too much in the weeds. We'll work with you, but you're going to get $15,000 if you're accepted. The low end, 25,000 at the high end. So that's right off the top, and then scholarships are money you don't have to pay back. Then we also try to see if there's any other scholarships that you're eligible for. We do have competitions twice a year where you can win a full tuition and full room scholarship. So all you'd have to do is pay for your meals. So that would be it. And then, we look at grants. So we encourage people to fill out the FAFSA, right? The FAFSA, to see if they're eligible for any government grants. So there could be federal money, there could be state money, there could be local money that they're giving out. So scholarships and grants you do not have to pay back. And then, as you get into other financing options, you could get into loans, could get into work study. We do have a work study program here where we basically, because we're a small campus and have needs, you may not, as a freshman, you may not get the best job on campus, but we can basically assure you a job on campus. And then a lot of students, to be honest, will work in the Grand Rapids area as well, because most of our campus jobs are minimum wage. There's a lot of places right around campus within walking, biking, skating distance, and we do have a great public transportation here. Being a sustainable campus, we have a sustainability where you pay 25 cents to ride the Rapid, which is the busing system to Grand Rapids. So you show your ID, give them a quarter of the way there and a quarter on the way back, and you're good. So that's kind of cool. So there's a lot of job opportunities around campus as well, if that's what you want to do. Some people will do things like, oh, I like to babysit, and I like to dog sit, and those types of things. And those are all held through the Advantage Center as well. They have a program there called Handshake that lists jobs.
Mm.
I know I've hired, now my kids are a little bit older, but I had the best babysitters. I always hired, Aquinas students. Don't live too far from campus. Man, they were great. But we also know a lot of people will want career oriented jobs. So I'm looking outside my door right now. We have student ambassadors. We have financial aid, student workers. Almost every department hires a student worker or two. So a lot of opportunities for on campus jobs too to help pay for that.
Yeah, no, that's a great, yeah, I think a great tip for students who might be starting their freshman year, just to be proactive at whatever school you're attending. And there's usually resources and folks who are responsible for helping students find work study. And I think one misconception students have is if they don't have work study officially as part of their financial aid package, means they can't work, which is not true. You can absolutely still find employment opportunities. Um, well, as we begin to wrap up, Brian, I like to close with a question a little bit more aimed at the high school juniors who might be starting off their process. And I'm just curious if you could give just one piece of advice to um, the high school juniors out there who are just newly kicking off their college admissions process. What might that be?
One piece. That's hard. Well, one piece. I'll try to make it an all-inclusive one piece. So, don't be afraid to apply to multiple schools. Apply out there. I'd also say visit. I couldn't imagine. Sometimes you can't. Like if you're an international student, you can't come here. Um, but what can you do to visit? We do for out-of-state students. We do have a $400 give back. So if they have to fly in, we'll refund up to $400 for the student for their first time visiting. Those types of things. So look at those programs. But I think it's hard to go to a college sight unseen, and sometimes you might have a vision of a place and you look at the website and then you go there, it's like a little bit different than your vision. So, check out the area, the neighborhood around, those types of things as well. But don't limit yourself. College search process should be fun. I'd like to greet people as they come in, our visitors. I'm like, hey, really enjoy your day today. You get to hang out sometimes with a parent or with a guardian or somebody that's also vested in you. It should be fun to go check out colleges. So try to enjoy that. I'd also say, some students as juniors know what kind of size they're looking at. I kind of challenge students to maybe look at one big, one medium, one small, just to kind of see the difference as well. Because sometimes you think, and I was this way. I grew up in Flint, Michigan, and to me, college was kind of going to a big school. That's just what I thought of as college. And then it was only late into my junior, early my senior year that I spent time at a small school. I'm like, wow, this is pretty
Mm.
cool. I like this feel because to me, I just thought of college as you go and you sit with 100,000 people in a football game, right? That's what you do. And I would never have done that had I not been challenged to go by a counselor and go look at a small school. So and small schools aren't for everybody, right? Somebody if their experience of college is wanting to be with 120,000 people at a football game every Saturday. I mean, yes, you could get tickets and go from here, but you're probably not going to be as happy, right? Whereas here you're going to have. I was just this weekend at a play, that a student production. You have kind of find your people in smaller groups. Grand Rapids also, that's one of the things that gives us a great advantage, though. I mean, we have an arena, we have an amphitheater, we have so much to do with big concerts coming in there that you can do that. But again, just think of what does college look like to me, and then maybe try on a couple different, and then like I said, apply. What's the worst case scenario? Somebody says, you're not, not at this time, and those can kind of hurt when you get those letters. But move on, shake it off. You'll be at the place that you want to be. So don't be afraid. Try to have some fun with the process, see different size schools, and make sure that you do visit. Um, starting your junior year, I think that's a good time to start visiting. Definitely maybe that summer between junior and senior year. Although college campuses are a little bit quieter, but it might help you start to narrow it down. There's nothing against you visit college 2, 3 times, right? And I know sometimes it's logistics that get in the way. But I signed a lot of letters, to schools saying, please dismiss this student for today because they were on our campus. We'll do that. It's a very important step, and you just want to do your research, right? And make sure that you find the place that's the best fit that you can know going in.
Yeah, I love that advice, Brian, of kind of trying on different types of schools. And it might not be the exact like school that, maybe you want to be in a different part of the country, maybe you want to be in a specific city, but chances are within, fairly like close distance to where you live, you're going to be able to find a few, handful of different types of schools and different sizes and models. And completely agree. I think, you don't have to like make, do a huge long like college trip. You can do a couple of day trips and just see what they feel like. And I agree. I think trying to challenge yourself and think about different types of options is a real asset for students just because, you might discover something, unexpected that you like. And, I know I agree with you. I think a lot of people see this, the kind of college football Saturdays at like big, and big SEC or Big Ten school, and that can be great. But even if you think that's for you, like I would, always recommend, putting my school counseling hat on, try a medium school, try a small school, try like check out a school in a city, check out a school that's a little bit more rural, and just kind of get a sense, just because it's really hard to, you know, hard to know exactly, what you might like till you actually get a taste of that, and that's a great way to get a taste of that when you're on campus.
Yeah, and take pictures. If you're gonna visit multiple schools too, sometimes they'll run together, especially if it's gonna be
Mm.
spaced out a little apart. So take some pictures so they can remember that as well. Like I said, enjoy the journey. The journey should be fun.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I think it is a lot of fun. Always enjoyed on the college admission side, seeing students and families visiting colleges, and just a lot of exciting possibilities. You get to, see something new and think about all the possibilities in the future, which is, I think, a lot of fun. Well, thank you so much, Brian. This has been really great. I feel like for all of the listeners getting, a really nice primer on Aquinas, what makes the college unique. And I think just some great general advice as students are navigating this really, really big, I think sometimes stressful decision. I think that this will make that process a little bit less stressful and complicated for folks. So thank you so much for joining us on Office Hours.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for the work that you're doing with Scholarship 360 and helping us all make college affordable.
Thanks everyone for tuning in to another episode of Office Hours with Will Geiger. If you're a student or parent, don't forget to check out app.scholarships360.org, where you can sign up for our free scholarship matching platform. For colleges, we've got solutions to make your work easier, which you can check out at connect.scholarships360.org. And one last thing, if you or someone you know would make a great guest on the show, I'd love to hear from you. You can always reach me by email or on LinkedIn. Until next time, thanks again for listening.